Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 299 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is Find Ways to Serve. Our quote of the day comes to us from Anne Frank. No one has ever become poor by giving. As we approach episode number 300, I would like to personally invite everybody to join the Positivity Tribe. Please help us spread our mission of positivity and grab yourself a copy of our new book, The Positivity Tribe, at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or wherever else books are sold. I've known today's guest for quite a few months, and I always enjoy whenever we get the opportunity to connect. Neal Williams is a true supporter of others, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Neal, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time. So the first question I ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
Absolutely.
So the number one objective of our show is to both motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. I know you have quite an interesting story where you had an opportunity to give up, but you didn't, and you kept on going. And I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing that with our listeners today.
Yeah, of course. So I'll keep it short as possible, brief as possible. There was a point in my life where, I had a lot of unaddressed issues, some anxiety, depression that I've been, stuffing down for some years, and developed some pretty nasty drug habit and was drinking really heavy, and everything came to a head, and I decided I was going to try and take my own life. I didn't succeed at that. And that was when things just accelerated in a negative direction. And for the next several years, things just got worse and crazier, and legal issues got worse. And so I ended up with warrants. I was living on the street, selling drugs, drug addict, just zero direction. And I remember I looked up at the sky that day, and I said, God, if you're real, I need something to happen, because I can't do this. I've created something that I can't stop, and I've dug myself a hole that I can't get out of. So if you exist, I need you to show up. And 3 or 4 hours later, task force showed up, picked me up, and I decided that night, that I was going to see what I could do with my life. I was going to go the opposite direction. I had seen how much negative I could do, and it was time for me to go the other way and see what I could make of my life. And I never looked back. So
first of all, I appreciate you sharing your story. I've known you for quite some time now, and I think your let's call it comeback story is remarkable. But what you shared in that brief story, there's a lot of things, and I guess the follow-up question I have to that is that decision, how were you able to make that decision to go from one side to the other side? Because I think so many people in life get to that point where they want to give up, and they're just going to continue to go down the rabbit hole. They think and they want to go the other direction, but they ultimately don't do it. So how were you able to do it, and what allowed you during those difficult times to make not only that decision, but then to follow it up with action?
I've always been resilient. You could even say very stubborn. And so I reached a point, for years, I was trying to do things my way, and I was trying to fix my problems my way. I didn't want to ask for help. And when I asked somebody for help, I was only willing to accept the help that I wanted, not what I needed. And so it really, for me, I think it took me pulling every tool out of my tool bag I could find and trying things my way until I just run myself so far into the ground that it wasn't so much that I ran out of things to try as much as I had just become so empty that I felt like I was dead inside. And I have always, since I can remember, as long as I've been alive, I have cared for people. I have enjoyed life, at least parts of it. I've always thought, but like, I don't want to die. Like I want to live my life. And the fact that I had reached a point to where I didn't even want to be here anymore, something was wrong and I could not find answers. And I looked for so long and was still unable to find them, that I had just conceded to the fact that I didn't know. And it pissed me off. I was pissed that I didn't know, but that was also a sign to me that there's more out there, because if I don't know it, surely somebody else does.
And I think that's so important in many different ways. The perspective of getting advice and what you shared is, if you didn't know, somebody else out there did. And I think the follow-up perspective behind that is going ahead and either asking for or seeking guidance or help from others. And I think from a male perspective, it's something that we don't ever do. It's like asking for directions. You know, even with navigation, we're like, nope, I'm going to figure it out on my own. Ultimately, 2 or 3 hours later, typically we get there, where it could have been just, 2 minutes by asking directions. But I think it's getting to that point where you go ahead and say, you know what, I need this help. And I think so many people realize that they do, and they want it and they feel it, but for some reason they don't go ahead and ask for it and say, all right, Neal, I need your help. Can you help me with this?
Yeah, and sometimes I think that's what it's a weird thing, because there's a part of me that's glad that I put myself through what I did, because I learned a lot about myself. I learned certain situations that I was unable to face, or I was unprepared for, especially when it came to violent situations and, being in high-speed car chases and stuff like that, where normal people would just be scared to go anywhere near it. I really learned a lot about myself by putting myself in these crazy situations. And I don't think I would have learned those otherwise. And so I don't know. I don't want to say I condone those behaviors, but at the same time, I'm grateful for the things that I went through because of who I've become.
No, I think that's the key part, is it's going through those things, and the ultimate journey, the end result is obviously good, and you want to get to that, but it's who you become along the way, and the lessons you learn, the people you meet, and the things you encounter. So if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do today. Okay,
yeah. So today I still am employed for a company that I've been with since 2016, but I just recently, this last year, started my business, Elevated Lifestyle Academy. I'm a life coach, recovery coach. And so I specialize in working with individuals who are coming out of addiction and alcoholism, and I help them transition out of a life of addiction into a healthier, successful lifestyle. Ultimately, the goal is to not just show somebody how to live without these substances and addictions, but how to transcend that and become much more than just, hey, I'm sober. It's okay, but now what? Let's become, you have a second chance at life. So it's all about showing someone how to be much more than that and take advantage of your new opportunity.
So if you had to define yourself, but you could only use one word, what word would you pick?
One word? I'd still say I'm stubborn. I'm relentless, or I'm driven. I'm so critical of myself, man. I'm trying to say something positive. I would stick with driven. There's no, I don't have any stop. I don't have any quit. There's none of it in me.
The word stubborn, driven, and relentless, I think there's a lot of similarities between them. And I think some of the most successful people that you and I probably look up to and emulate in different fields have a big part of stubbornness within them to get them to that point of being the best or their best. So I think that's always an interesting question, and there is no right or wrong answer. And the answers and the words are pretty cool, because I know a lot of the guests prior to this, but I don't always know. Sometimes I'm dead on with the word that they choose, and sometimes as I'm taking notes, I'm like, okay, I definitely didn't see that coming. One of the things that we we focus on, and we truly believe at No Quit Living with our podcast, is the power of books and the power in words. I'm curious if you've read anything recently, or perhaps you're reading something currently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, well, in this I read, I think it's been almost 2 years now, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin changed my perspective especially of leadership. Not only that, but I don't think there's a single human being who can't benefit from that book. So Extreme Ownership, I think, is a must read. And even the sequel to that is The Dichotomy of Leadership. And I'm loving those books, man. Jocko Willink is he's something special. He's unlike anybody I've seen. And then I also read David Goggins.
He's from Connecticut. Do you know that?
I thought he was from Maine. I didn't know he was from Connecticut. I knew he was up in New England.
Yeah, he's from Connecticut. I didn't know that until I've been trying to get him on the podcast, so I was trying to use that hook, but it didn't work. And sorry, I cut you off. You were talking about Mr. Goggins?
Oh, yeah, and then Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. That's an unreal story. Right now I'm reading Patchwork Junkie by Kyle Houston, who you know, and really, really good. I can't compare it. It's different. It's really good though. I'm really impressed with what he did.
That's awesome. I have not read it. I definitely need to. Follow-up question for Jocko is, have you read Discipline Equals Freedom?
No, I haven't, and I haven't read it yet. I have like 10 on my list.
The last probably 40 or so pages is based on working out and stuff, and I know you have a powerlifting background, so that wouldn't be as relevant as far as, because some of it's more on the beginner side. But the foundation of that book, Discipline Equals Freedom, is just, it's a bunch of stuff that he talks about in Extreme Ownership and The Dichotomy as well. But he's just, the way he explains things and how he does it, it's fascinating.
Yeah, he's an excellent communicator, and the way that I was just amazed at his ability to teach through a book like that. It was kind of like John Maxwell-ish, the fact that he could teach through a book was really impressive to me.
And I think his military background it formulated the discipline and how he does things. And I think he probably spends like hundreds of hours going through his book. But if you could go back and give the 20-year-old version of yourself just one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. 20-year-old me was coming off a fresh suicide attempt and had also died and been revived after 8 minutes. And I was still looking for what's in this thing for me. And if I could sit down with that guy, I would have told him to start looking for what you're supposed to do here for others rather than what you're supposed to get out of this. Because oh man, this is one of the biggest things that I've learned in my life. And that is that this life is not about what I can get out of it. It's about what can I contribute. And once I start looking for ways to contribute to others and to life as a whole, it's just a bonus that I get more out of it than I ever will living selfishly. And it's just a beautiful way to live life.
I think it's kind of the whole mission behind what we do at No Quit Living is lifting other people up for others. And I think it's the word that I would follow up to what you said is the word serving others. And you can be successful within that, but I think when you decide to make a positive impact on other people, it comes back to you tenfold. And maybe it's not monetary always to somebody, maybe it's to you or your kids or your spouse or parents. But I think when you make that decision to do things for other people, and where we are as a country today, I think it's needed more so today than ever.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
If I had the opportunity to grant you dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick and why?
Teddy Roosevelt, Jocko Willink. One of those. Oof, that's a tough one because one's like, and I'll tell you why, because they're they're sophisticated, they're intelligent, and they're men. They're leaders, but they're men. And they have that wisdom, but also and I say this not knowing Teddy or Jocko personally, but from
you don't know Teddy Roosevelt?
No, we have not hung out.
He's a fascinating guy. He's into powerlifting too.
Is he?
Yeah, he's strong.
The mustache, I should have known. But yeah, man, their leadership, and I think nowadays I encounter, this is just my personal experience, I encounter a lot of guys who have this masculinity but don't have the intelligence piece, or someone who has this supreme intellect but not so much the masculinity. And that's not what I understand a man to be. We should be armed with both, and they're both very important, and they complement one another. But we should be well-rounded individuals and understand that intelligence should be respected, and it doesn't make you. It's not. I just think it's really important, and those two men have both, and they're leaders.
That would be a fascinating dinner. I think the two of them would probably have a ton to talk about, and I think both of them would be super interested in what the other person had to say from a perspective of so many years apart, but still leadership, leading a team, leading men, and going through incredible challenges.
Yeah.
So we're going to switch lanes to what we call our hot seat questions, and the only request we have of you is you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Last meal, you can pick absolutely anything. What do you pick?
Steak, mashed potatoes, and macaroni and cheese.
Favorite smell?
Oh, I like the smell of my cologne.
Favorite sport?
Baseball.
All-time favorite team?
Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to get it for that. I know.
It's okay. You guys won 20 years ago? It's all right.
It was in the 90s.
All-time favorite movie?
A River Runs Through It.
Do you have a favorite author?
Pat Conroy.
What is the favorite app you have on your phone?
Oh, I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with that phone. Probably Spotify.
What is your background picture on your phone?
I'm about to find out because I don't know. It's a starry night in the snowy mountains.
I thought you were going to say it was a picture of me. That was going to be kind of odd.
I'm sorry, Chris. I could change it.
Do you have an all-time favorite book?
One of my all-time favorite books is Beach Music by Pat Conroy. Just freaking amazing book.
Do you have an all-time favorite quote?
I'm going to butcher it, but it's by Henry Rollins, and it says there's no such thing as free time, no such thing as spare time. All you have is lifetime. Go.
It's awesome. I don't think you butchered it. I think you got it.
I hope so. I love Henry Rollins. He's cool as hell.
So during these challenging times, I wanted to ask you if there's maybe one or two people that you would recommend that you follow on social media that puts out positive content that you could possibly recommend to our listeners that are looking to add some more of that into their life.
And you can thank Tim for this. Well, the first one I'll say Tony Robbins. And I know that's maybe kind of cliche. Tony Robbins is like the life coach that everyone in the world knows. But my gosh, he has just remained, he always stays focused on the things that matter. And not only has he stayed focused, but he's done what we should all be doing. And that's take advantage of this time and use it to our benefit. And he's just continued moving forward and getting people involved for the betterment of us as a whole, of society. So I'd say Tony Robbins, and Brenda Burchard puts a lot of really positive stuff. And right now, I think it's really important to feed your brain with those things.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's always important, but I think during these really difficult times when it seems that everything that's out there is some type of hatred or negativity or anti this person or anti that person. So I think to your point, it's super important and something we often talk about here is the importance of muting negativity by spreading positivity, which is why I asked that question. So for our listeners that would like to find out more about you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do so or connect with you?
Best way is probably on Instagram or Facebook at Elevated Lifestyle _Academy. That's on Instagram. And then Elevated Lifestyle Academy on Facebook. I stay pretty active. I post a video every Monday. That goes on YouTube also, but the same videos are on my social media.
No, and I comment on many of your videos, and I think you do have good content. And the one thing that I like about your stuff is original to you, and I think it's on the shorter side, which I like. I think a lot of people try to inundate with a bunch of videos and messages, and I think to your point about social media and the importance of putting it out there, I think you miss it when somebody's putting out 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 things a day. So I definitely would recommend our listeners connecting with you and following you. And then last question.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Of course.
I think it's really important if anybody's considering making videos or someone already is. What I do with mine is I talk about things that I understand, and I don't try and pretend to get things. And I talk about things that I've experienced in my own life and things I understand. I don't try to pretend to get anything, and that has fared me well.
No, that's good advice, and I think to the question of who you follow on social media, I think it's important to pick the people that you follow and pick them for reasons. So again, just reiterating, definitely recommend people to check out some of Neal's stuff. And last question is, if you have some parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yes. I would everyone to understand that the best way to find your purpose is to find ways to serve. I wish everyone understood that they have a purpose here, even if they don't see it yet. And the easiest way to find it is to look for ways to help others or to serve others. That's what we're here for. That's what will give you the most out of life. And that's what's going to give you fulfillment. And ultimately, that's what we all need to be doing, especially like you said, in times like these. If more people were looking for ways to help each other, we would be in a better place, just in a ridiculously quick fashion. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but we can be the change we want to see.
I love it. It's like the, I believe the Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world. And to your point, it's definitely needed now. So listen, my man, I truly, truly appreciate you spending some time with us. I hope that our listeners connect with you and follow you. And I look forward to talking with you again soon. Yeah, thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me. Oh, and I'm sorry, my website, www.elevatedlifestyleacademy.com. I forgot it. Check it out, www.elevatedlifestyle.com. Thanks, Chris. Thank you for listening to episode number 299. Neal mentioned one thing in particular that really hit me. He said how for so many years he was trying to do things his way, but it just wasn't working. A very vulnerable but extremely important message I think we all need to hear, especially during these challenging times. In his parting words, Neal mentioned finding ways to serve others. So that is my challenge to you today. Find one way to serve one person and do it with zero expectations in return. And remember, we rise by lifting others up.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.